Hey guys, Katsy or Zoe here. Welcome back to another video on my channel. Today I'm back with another what if. Been a long time since we've done one of these. So today I'm going to be doing a what if I kind of thought about just randomly and decided to do it because I'm very spontaneous like that. And I thought about what if Sierra was in Total Drama Revenge of the Island. As you guys know, both Alejandro and Sierra were new characters in Total Drama World Tour. However, Revenge of the Island had an all-new cast, so this got me thinking, what if Sierra slash Alejandro were in the season? Now, I didn't want to do 15 because the biggest reason this came to my head was because of the fact it's always been weird to me the Revenge of the Island had 13 characters and was uneven because no other season did this. So I don't know why it was so hard for the people making Revenge of the Island to just make one extra character. And part of me wonders if if Alejandro and Sierra weren't in World Tour, in another universe, would one of them just been placed in Rhodey? So that's what we're kind of doing here. I think that Sierra makes more sense, one, because the gender imbalance is in favor of the guys having 7 to the girls having 6, so it's only fair to let Sierra be in and give the girls 7, especially since a lot of the earlier boots are girls in the first place, so it's a bit of an interesting choice to gender imbalance that way. But, yeah. Plus, I think Alejandro is like a villain that would work better in World Tour, and Sierra, I feel like out of the two is better for Revenge of the Island. So here we go. I don't know if I've seen anyone do this. I don't think I've seen someone do something this specific, though TD Wonder did do If Sierra and Alejandro Were an Island, which is a similar concept, but like obviously different season. So I think I'm going to be crediting them in the description, especially since in a video a while ago they did shout me out, which I was really thankful for and I appreciated a lot. So thank you to that, TD Wonder, if you're watching, and we are gonna get right into it. So for episode 1, where I think mostly the same stuff happens, except for the fact. Sierra, I think, would get a connection to Zoe immediately. Like, I feel like Sierra would start warming up to Zoe and want to be Zoe's friend. And Zoe's, like, the nice girl. She's like, I want friends. However, I think she'd be immediately turned off by Sierra. And the thing about Sierra is Sierra, I think, is still a huge fan of Total Drama. Like, she's still a Total Drama fan, like, to a crazy degree. She's still absolutely crazy and insane. However, she doesn't hyperfixate over one person before you comment. No, I'm not doing the Sierra Cameron thing here. I'm not doing it. I refuse. You all know Sierra is one of my least favorite characters in the show. I'm notorious for hating her character in a lot of seasons and a lot of videos I do, and All Stars hating on her, and All Stars is a part of the problem. I mean, I still don't like her on World Tour, but it's a bit more tolerable than All Stars. But another point. Now now Zoe would be immediately turned off by Sierra, and I think Sierra would be like so Sierra in this universe is the personification of shippers, like, who ship characters together. So I think Sierra would see Mike and Zoe's instant connection and start being like, Zoe, casting Zoe forever, and kind of like push Zoe and Mike together more in an effort pushing Zoe to want to be as far away from Sierra as possible, but conflicted because she wants her to be her friend. So, but I think the challenge, Mutant Maggots would still win because they won in canon, and I think Sierra would actually probably make them win by even more, not even less. Like, I think Sierra would actually make sure they win even more. I don't think Sierra would hinder this challenge in the slightest. I think she'd actually be a great aid and just prove Mutant Maggots win. Now, at the elimination, same thing goes. Stacy would get eliminated. I think that's fair. Episode 2, Obstacle Course. Or no, wait, that's also they do the truth. First they would do the truth or Laser Shark, and I think everyone would say the same, except Sierra would just immediately have looked at the profiles and know. I think Sierra would have looked at been able to somehow, with her crazy and weird things, been able to access all the total new contestant profiles before coming on. So I think she would kind of have advanced knowledge in some of these contestants just by being able to access the files of, like, the accepted contestants. So she would know Mike has the ID. And so and her secret would be that she's secretly been in love with Cody. That'd be her thing, and everyone would just be like, that's kind of cute, but in a weird, creepy way. like Sierra kind of they think they passed it off as like some sort of celebrity crush, but they realized an obsession. However, and I think on the walk to the next challenge, Sierra would bring up to Mike, "Hey, why didn't you answer the UIDID?" And Mike would be like, "Wait, what?" Because Sierra would just know about looking at the like files. So Mike would plead with Sierra not to tell anyone. And Sierra would promise she wouldn't, and I think that would start a little bit of a friendship, but not really, because Mike is still kind of turned off by Sierra as well, but Sierra would promise not to say anything, and I think she'd keep her word. And at the challenge, I think the same thing would happen, and unfortunately, I think Sierra would actually do even better in the challenge and actually help quite a lot, so that would lead to the same thing happening. Same elimination, Dakota still gets eliminated. Next, we have the next episode where Scott really starts his sabotage of B, right? And this is the episode where a lot of things happen. However, I think that Sierra, with her advanced knowledge, would actually be able to help Muta Maggots win the first part of the challenge. So that, I think that she would actually make Muta Maggots win. Like, she'd actually, because Mike, Zoe, and Cameron are down. Sierra's kind of trying to get in with this group of 3. So she'd actually help them get up there with her advanced skills. And yeah, she'd get them up there. So I think that would happen. And they'd actually win the advantage. And they'd obviously still choose the same thing. And I think when Scott sabotages B, Sierra can't do anything about it, but she would voice to Mike, Zoe, Cameron, and everyone in this team that she finds that weird, because Sierra would just know that Scott is up to no good. And at the elimination, she would unfortunately would not be able to save B, because she's not on their team, but she would point out how weird this is, and how she doesn't really. So Sierra is very wary of Scott from like, immediately, I think. Next challenge is the like horror challenge, and as we know, Dawn gets caught first, then Zoe gets caught. I think Sierra would have advanced knowledge of this challenge, so her and Cameron would become friends, but not in a weird way, as I said, and they'd kind of like help out with the challenge. But obviously Brick would get caught, Joe would get caught, and then Cameron gets caught last, and on this team, Lightning gets caught. So in the end, I think it would be down to Sierra, Scott, Sam, and Maria, and Mike, these 5. But in the end, I think that Mike would go Svetlana and free everyone, which Sierra would have trouble not to point out to Zoe, but she'd try really hard, and she'd probably have a confessional being like how hard keeping a secret is. Or something like that. And obviously, I think that Brick, the same thing would happen. Muta Maggots would still lose. And at elimination, Brick would volunteer for elimination. But here's the thing. We have one extra person here, so I don't think Chris would have a non-elimination happen. So unfortunately, I'm sorry to all the Brick lovers, but Brick quitting would just lead him going home this episode, because he would quit because he feels like he dishonored everyone, and Brick would quit. And unfortunately, because there's one extra person, that would just mean Brick goes home and Brick is eliminated, which obviously changes the season a lot, you know? So then the next episode is the episode where Brick would have swapped to Toxic Rats. And here's the thing. Scott stole a bunch of stuff, but he says he planned to frame it on Brick originally because of him being a new player. And I don't think, had there not been a new player join this team, Scott would have done it, because I think he did it because when Brick joined the team, he felt like, oh, no one knows Brick on this team, so they're not going to trust him, and that's kind of how. But everyone on this team kind of knows each other, so it just means that, like, he would not steal the stuff. And when it gets to the episode, and then when it gets to Toxic Rats losing, Dawn would, like, be on to Scott, and Scott would not have found out, but and it would basically just be Scott and Dawn both pleading with Lightning and Sam on who to trust. And what I think would happen is they both plead, and I love Dawn. However, Lightning is dumb, so he'd probably still vote for her, not understanding her logic. And Sam, I don't know who Sam would vote for. I think even if he voted for, here's the thing, even if he voted for Scott and there was a tiebreaker, Dawn would still lose that tiebreaker any day to Scott. And I just don't know if Dawn, even with, like, she found out Scott's intentions, but I don't know if she could convince Lightning is the problem. And I think Scott can be more convincing to Lightning. So, unfortunately, Dawn, I love you, but you're not saved or eliminated. Oh, wait, go here. Dawn goes there. She actually makes up a row. Yay! And then, obviously, okay, next challenge. So this is the challenge where Sam gets eliminated. Oh, by now Dakota has come back in turn. I should have said that. And Sierra's probably, like, really intrigued by this because that's never happened in a previous season where a contestant was an intern. So, yeah. And I think that this episode would play out almost entirely the same. And I think that Sam would get the boot this episode. Sam would unfortunately get the boot this episode. Now for the team swap, however. I think that, you know, Joe is very, like, Joe and Scott are the people that were getting up. And I think that just, because originally Joe is the character out of the, like, 5 that'd be most likely to volunteer quickly. However, Sierra is a very excitable character, so I think she might actually volunteer before Joe. And so she'd volunteer, so that would lead to Sierra and Scott swapping teams, which would lead to Lightning and Sierra being together in the next challenge. And in the next challenge, that means that no one's there to save Mike, Zoe, and Cameron. So I think what would happen is they obviously couldn't die because as much as Chris is insane, that would be really bad for this show. So I think I'm not going to say Mike, Zoe, and Cameron die. If they don't, Chris saves them in the end. And that means that unfortunately, Miona Maggots will lose the challenge. Now for the vote. So Scott has gotten Zoe, is probably already worked to get Zoe on his side and is successful, mainly because Zoe is pushing away from Scott, Sam, and Mike, especially with Cameron and Mike because of how weird they're being, and with the whole Anne Maria thing still happening, especially when Sierra was in the picture and being in the group. Zoe probably was just getting the ick, so she's now with Scott. And I think at the vote, Cameron and Mike would vote Scott, and I think Scott would convince Joe to vote for Cameron, since Cameron is useless in challenges. I think Anne Maria is voting for Zoe because she doesn't like her, and I think Zoe not wanting to vote out Cameron but not wanting to betray Scott votes for Anne Maria. And that leads to Zoe and Anne Maria having 1 vote, Scott and Cameron having 2 votes, and in a tiebreaker, I think it's pretty safe to say that Cameron would easily lose a tiebreaker to Scott. And this would Scott be like, what the hell, Zoe? And Zoe would be like, I'm sorry, I didn't know. I didn't vote for you, though. And it would be like, so in the next episode, Scott would be worrying that Zoe is losing trust in him. And the episode would be most of the same. Like, Scott would still show Zoe the idol in a way, but this time with more weight, because he's worried that Zoe's losing trust in him because she didn't vote for Cameron at the last challenge. And with Mike unable to, like, suppress his alters as a result of Zoe not knowing what to do, of Zoe, I think that would mean that he would show Zoe the idol, and that'd be simple. Now, I think that Joe is obviously getting on to Scott and not trusting him. Anne Maria obviously doesn't like Scott. Like, it's shown in the episode she doesn't like him. So they're going to be approaching Mike about voting off Scott. And then Mike would tell Zoe that they want to vote Scott, but Zoe would not know how to go about this, right? And she'd tell Scott, and so what would happen is Zoe would vote with Scott, but only if Scott promised not to kick off Mike. So Scott would take this, and they would vote for who Zoe didn't like the most, which is Anne Maria is the agreement. They agree to vote for Anne Maria. And they vote for Anne Maria. These three vote for Scott. Scott plays the immunity idol. Unfortunately, that leads to Anne Maria getting eliminated. So, Anne Maria's eliminated. And that means... Congrats. Congrats. These six have official... Oh no, what did I do? Congrats to these six. Congrats, these six have officially become our merge. So there we go. 3 girls, 3 guys. I think that's actually fair. And I think the first challenge would play out mostly the same. However, Scott didn't have Cameron to tell him about the DID. So I think instead, this episode, he would have gone to Sierra and been like, hey, Sierra, can you explain what's happening, right? And Sierra would obviously be frantic and not want to say anything, but because it's Sierra and she's crazy, she'd accidentally just panic and spill it. And because Mike has always been wary of Sierra, this would also cause friction between the two, and Mike would be like, what the hell, Sierra? What is wrong with you? And they'd obviously be fighting, and Scott would be blackmailing Mike the whole time. So, everything would go as planned, and eventually Zoe would tell Mike and they'd become an item. However, Scott would see Sierra and Mike are now beefing, and he would not take out Mike. I love Zoe, however, she has just become an item with Mike, and Mike is beefing with Sierra, and I think that Zoe is kind of just enemy fire at this point. Like, she's not beefing with Sierra, but not nearly as much, so it's kind of like Scott would choose to solo vote Zoe instead of Mike, basically, is what I'm saying. I love you, Zoe, you're my favorite character, but it has to be done, and this would mean Mike would swear revenge against Scott. You took out my girlfriend, that's my girl, you took her out, I'm gonna take my revenge. And the next challenge, basically, Mike would kind of take Zoe's role, but also want to take out Sierra. And in the next challenge, that would mean that I think Lightning would probably secure immunity as a result of everything, because he was second closest other than Cameron, so Lightning would get it. And these 4, so Scott would like put stuff in Mike and Sierra's ears to convince them to vote for each other. However, Mike is swearing revenge on Scott more than anything, so he actually, I think, puts his beef aside with Sierra, and they tunnel Scott and get him out, fully avenging Zoe, the next elimination. So, Scott is out, 5th place. I think that's fine. Next challenge is the eating challenge, which, as we know, Sierra's actually did great in World Tour at the eating challenge. So Sierra would win the eating challenge as well as the advantage. And in terms of who would race to the finish line first, it would be down to Joe and Lightning. However, I think that Joe could win immunity. And it would be a Mike. Mike and Sierra are going to obviously be beefing over who to vote, because now they're going to tunnel each other. And that would leave Joe with immunity and Lightning getting to basically play the game and basically pick whichever one of them they want to go. And I think, unfortunately, they dislike Sierra more. So that would mean Sierra gets eliminated, because I think she would just be more annoying than Mike. Plus, Mike has good performances in challenges Svetlana, but Sierra has been shown to be crazy good at challenges so far. So Sierra would get eliminated. Now for the final 3 challenge, we would have be really interesting. So, obviously, we'd have everything play out very similar, except there'd be no team up. And I think that Lightning only, I think that Joe actually could beat Lightning in immunity. I could be wrong, but I do think Joe would have a better chance at winning this than Lightning, because Lightning and Joe are equally strong, but Joe's, like, smart, so she'd be able to get the thing easier. Like, Lightning only got it because of, like, Mike and Cameron, like, trying to help each other and being selfless, but with it being these three, Mike doesn't have Zoe or Cameron to want to save when they get eaten, so, like, I think that he would just lose and Joe would be able to just take it to the end and win. And she'd, like, backstab, and I think in the elimination, she would backstab Lightning, and Lightning would get out. So that would leave a Mike versus Joe finale. Now, I like Joe more as a character. I know you probably don't expect that, because Zoe's my favorite, but I actually don't like Mike that much. So I am more so partial to Joe's ending rather than Mike's. But I think Mike's ending is a fair ending. And yeah, that's what would happen if Sierra was in Revenge of the Island. Let me know what you guys think about it. And if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications to never miss a single video. And if you enjoyed this video, I will see you guys next time. Bye!